Hello and welcome to the Al-Monitor Brief. It's Monday, June 3rd. I'm Kristen Tallman. Today's main segment is a conversation with Rina Bassist, Al-Monitor's Israel editor. She recently wrote a terrific analysis piece on Italy's shifting diplomatic approach to Israel. But first, let's get you caught up on the headlines. The conservative speaker of Iran's parliament, Ghalibaf, registered Monday his candidacy for the snap presidential election on June 28th. Egyptian President al-Sisi accepted the government's resignation on Monday, calling for the new one to focus on boosting foreign investment and tackling rising prices, among other issues facing the North African country. Some 127 international companies have relocated their regional headquarters to Saudi Arabia over the first quarter of 2024, according to a new report, an increase of 477% from the previous year as the kingdom looks to lure businesses to set up there as it diversifies its economy away from oil. The leaders of Qatar and the United Arab Emirates stressed during a meeting in Abu Dhabi on Sunday the need to step up efforts to reach a permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip as the United States and mediators are pushing Israel and Hamas to agree to a new ceasefire proposal put forward by President Joe Biden. Turkey's annual consumer inflation rate exceeded 75% in May, the highest in the past 18 months, according to official data released on Monday. Doubts were growing on Monday about a plan for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal as heavy fighting raged for a third day since Biden's White House address. The Indian Ocean nation of the Maldives is banning Israelis from the luxury tourist hotspot, the office of the president said Sunday, announcing a national rally in, quote, solidarity with Palestine. And now, on to the main segment. Hi, Rina. Welcome to the Al-Monitor Brief.
Thank you. Hi, Kristen. Great to be here.
So, Rina, you just wrote a really great piece looking at how Italy's relationship with Israel and its foreign policy approach has shifted ever so slightly. Can you just walk us through the reporting process and what you found out?
Yeah, it's very interesting because since Mrs. Giorgia Meloni became Prime Minister of Italy, and even before, during her election campaign, she was always considered by Israel as one of its stronger allies within the European Union, a little bit in the same camp as Hungary's Viktor Orban and other either nationalist or populist or far-right leaders, like in the Czech Republic, in Poland, in other countries. And Mr. Netanyahu and even his son, Yair Netanyahu, were very quick to congratulate her after her electoral victory at the time, almost 2 years ago. And even after October 7, we've seen that Italy was quite quiet on the conflict, on the Gaza war, almost not criticizing Israel on its operation in Gaza, unlike other European countries. If we think about France and, of course, Spain, Ireland, Belgium. But over the past, let's say, 2-3 months, we do see some sort of a change. First of all, we've seen some declarations of the Italian Defense Minister, Guido Crosetto, very, very strongly criticizing Israel on its entry into Rafah and on the latest strike a couple of days ago, where 45 people died in a fire after Israel attacked two Hamas operatives, also in Rafah. We have also seen just this week the visit of the Palestinian Prime Minister, the new Palestinian Prime Minister, Mohammed Mustafa, in Rome. And during that visit, Italy also announced that it was resuming its financial support of UNRWA, a step that Italy has not taken so far. So we see little by little all of these signs showing that Mrs. Meloni and her government may not be anymore the sort of ally that Mr. Netanyahu considered them to be.
Fascinating. Okay. And so there's sort of been this shift, as you mentioned, there was the assumption that Meloni was an ally or could be sort of quite a quote close ally, but now isn't. I mean, what camp does this put her in now in relations with Israel? You know, you have the Irelands, right? And then you have Czech Republic and Hungary, as you mentioned. So is this sort of a third way of approaching things?
In a way, yes, and I think that we will see for sure the Italian position still evolving. First of all, we see it evolving as the war in Gaza evolved, and we can also assume that the more European countries that will join this group of Ireland and Spain and also Norway, even though Norway is not a member of the European Union, recognizing a Palestinian state, or at least stating that they will at some point recognize a Palestinian state. All of these countries, we can assume that the pressure will grow on Italy to join that camp. And what is very interesting, I spoke with several both Italian researchers and Italian journalists, and they're all saying more or less the same, that even though Giorgia Meloni she ran first and was elected prime minister on a far-right ticket. That's very, very clear when you look also at the character of the Brothers of Italy, of her own mother party. But over these almost 2 years that she's been in that position, she has proven to be quite a pragmatic leader. And a pragmatic leader, at least on this issue of the conflict in the Middle East and the Gaza war, we see that she's more and more inclined actually to follow the public opinion of the Italians and not necessarily join this nationalist circle. Of course, she's maybe a nationalist, but she's not a Eurosceptic leader in Europe, as are some other leaders. So for Mrs. Meloni, what will be crucial would be the Italian public opinion, and not so much whatever sentiments she had at the beginning when she started, sort of in Netanyahu's pocket.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, in context, the European elections are coming up, and you've seen von der Leyen sort of cozy up to Meloni, and it seems like the Italian government under Meloni has now had this, as you say, kind of in this power position where initially it seemed like they were aligning with the quote, far right or more the Orbans of the world. So it's interesting how she now has more of an upper hand, how then there's a little bit more of a carving of for the Italian government's own stance towards it. And interesting that she seems to be swayed by the Italian public, which I'm pretty sure every citizen hopes that their politicians are swayed by public opinion versus just coalescing with different political figures. But yeah, Rina, is there anything that when you were reporting this that you found really interesting or kind of worth keeping an eye on?
Yes, there are still some contradictions, and we said before that the position of Italy and the position of Mrs. Meloni is still evolving. We see, for example, that Italy is not participating in the campaign of parachuting humanitarian aid to Gaza. But on the other hand, we just saw that Italy did promise that it will resume its financial aid to UNRWA. So that's one thing. And then we should not also forget that one of the priorities of the Meloni government, it's not so much related to perhaps to Gaza and to Israel, but it is related to the region in the fact that her government has put forward a very ambitious plan, which is called the Mattei Plan, which concerns increasing ties between Italy and Africa, including North Africa, of course, in the perspective and the ambition to tackle the issue of immigration from North Africa to Italy, and putting forward that plan. In a way, it also means that Italy would like perhaps take a bigger role in what is happening in the Middle East. And there was a very interesting reflection that one of the journalists with whom I spoke made. He said, look at the leaders that are, the European leaders that are most engaged now, not only now, but in the past few years in the Middle East. We see French President Emmanuel Macron, we see German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Both of these leaders of the influencing European countries are quite unpopular in their own countries at the moment. In contrast, when you look at Giorgia Meloni, 2 years after her election, she is still very popular within the Italian public, which makes her one of the stronger European leaders, even though Italy traditionally perhaps is not considered one of the leading countries within the European Union.
Rina, terrific reporting. Thanks so much for keeping us up to the minute.
Thank you, Kristen.
That's it for today, Monday, June 3rd. You can read all these stories and more at allmonitor.com.